Hi, Thomas. I welcome you on Dare to Bear. Thank you for saying yes to this.
Hi, great to see you.
Thank you. My first question to you is, you don't know me, right? I mean, you don't know me. This is an informal conversation, right? So I'm not going to be any made up here. So you didn't know me. We just exchanged a few official emails. What prompted you to say yes?
That's a good question to start with because it's a difficult one. I think to a certain degree, it's a mix of who am I and who you seem to be. Yeah? I mean, I'm generally a person who loves to share and loves to also really interact with others. So probably I would not have rejected a lot of these requests, but this in combination with the way on how you addressed me, let's say the warmth and openness and authenticity that I could hear in your emails and I could feel out of it, that was probably the reason that must be cool. Yeah. And
It's this.
indeed, I don't know you well. Before you pressed the recording button, we had like 5 minutes to talk a little bit. But yeah, I'm looking forward for more.
This reminds me of what we say in neuroscience, that the mirror neurons kind of say, yes, she must be good. She's like me. Has the combination of MBA and psychology worked out in your life? You are very young. I thought you were older than when I read your biography. I was like, oh, he's a young man. And management, psychology. How did that combination come about? Was it default? Was it design? And how's that working out in your life?
Yeah, I mean, if you look in general, in hindsight, it looks like I always had a plan, but honestly, I never had one. So, I mean, I was at the end of my social service. You know, in Germany, after the high school, you do either military service and social service, and I rather wanted to help handicapped children and work with people who have some disabilities. So I was doing this for a year, and then it was really coming time to apply for a university place. I said, what should I study? What should I study? And then having no idea what to do, definitely not into law, definitely not into finance. And then, yeah, human beings are interesting. So let's go for psychology. But mainly for the reason of saying, then you still have all options open. You can go into therapy, you can go into school system, you can go into business, and so on and so on. And yeah, it turned out after also some kind of excursions into psychiatrical or clinical psychology, it turned out that organizational psychology, business psychology was my thing. And I worked in it for a few years. And then I noticed indeed that on one hand, I was never really taken totally serious by my internal clients, by the people in the company because of the psychology label. So that was one hand. And the other hand, I said that I also would like simply to understand things better. So honestly, whenever people were talking about balance sheets and income statements, I was like, and then afterwards looking a little bit. So I also really had this hunger to understand better. And that's why at a certain point of time, I decided to do the MBA, the executive MBA. So I was still working at the same time, but then spending Thursday, Friday, Saturday on understanding a bit better how a company works, what is a supply chain, and this kind of stuff. I always said clearly that my focus will always be people. Yeah? And the way people interact, the way teams interact. But I just realized it's also easier as an entrance ticket, as a key to really warming up with customers, to really be also able to support organizations if you also understand how the business is working.
It's interesting you say that, because I did MBA first and then I did psychology. And for you, it was the other way around.
Oh, I know a lot of people like this who are coming, let's say, rather from the business world, and then you notice, human beings are the most interesting part. For me, it was a bit the other way around. Mm-hmm.
And how did you know at that age that human beings are so interesting and that's something that I want to pursue?
Well, I mean, the thing is, to a certain degree, you notice what kind of stuff you are interested in and what you really enjoy talking about, what keeps you busy all night long. And I realized for me, it was never technology. By the way, as a German man, this doesn't happen rarely, but whenever my friends were talking about machines and cars, I was like, and it was definitely also not a stock market or that kind of stuff, but I was always energized by people. So, I mean, I also do career coaching. There's a very good book that is called what color is your parachute? I don't know if it's also famous on the Indian market, but it helps, like, there's a lot of prompting questions when it comes to finding the career of your dream. And there was one set of questions, and one was like, where would you go in a bookstore when you have 4 hours of time? What kind of book would you read? Or another one, what could you talk about with friends all night long? And for me, it was always different people. Yeah. So why are they the way they are? And even a bit more seeing the positive in people. I think that's something that was really deeply in my interest, really, to see how can you help people to be a better person of themselves. That was, I never could say it so explicitly, but I think by the age 19, 12, I realized, that's what feels warm, so to say.
And this feeling warm, has it been coming from your culture? Because we don't know Germans as being extremely warm. So is it coming from there? Is it coming from the family? Or as we would say, that each soul comes with their own personal characteristics, and that kind of becomes the theme of that person's life?
That's a very good question. The Germans, indeed, I mean, all those prejudices about who we are nowadays a bit over. But if you would say in general, the picture of a German man is rather still the one of an introvert, structured, thinking, ITSJ, or how you call it. But like the German engineering is probably more famous than a German comedian. But this, I found this to be a little bit indeed stereotyping. And what I realize still nowadays, I just come out of a training with a group of hardcore engineers. This morning I was working with them, and it takes some days to make them smile. But once you do it and once they start warming up, it's a different story. I mean, Germany is more what you call this coconut culture, peach cultures and coconut cultures. Peach is like soft on the inside and then soft on the outside, hard on the inside. Germany is more, you have this hard shell, but once you're through, people start becoming warm. And if you talk about my family background, that was indeed true, that my father is a professor for physics, quantum mechanics theory. One of my brother has a PhD in mathematics. So the background was rather scientific indeed. And I always realized I'm not really fitting in. I mean, there must be something else, something more. So it starts, of course, with the feedback you get in school. It starts for what do people address you. And people never came to me to ask me to give them teaching in math, but they rather came to me, hey, I have a problem here. Can you help me on this? Or what do you think about this kind of person? So this was maybe the starting point.
I think that's the vibes you give out. You have a problem, come to me. I'm the one who's going to look after you.
That question is always very interesting, and I recommend this to a lot of people. Like, what are really people? When are people contacting you? For which kind of reasons? And that normally gives a good idea, also. But what is maybe inside you?
I see another similarity. When I left MBA, I was doing a job. When I left that job, I was wondering what to do because my job was too glamorous for a person like me. I had to do a lot of yes excellency. I was working with the hotel company in their embassies and high commissions department. So it was a very glorious, glamorous job. But I didn't think I had enough time to be who I am. And I said, as I always say, that I retired at the age of 24. And since then, I've been doing what I love doing. And that's how I started off. I checked with my family, my friends, what am I good at? Why would you come to me for a conversation? And I think that kind of gave me a hint. Beautiful, beautiful, Thomas. Thank you.
But glamorous, that I have to admit, I sort of like glamorous and also like being in the center of attention. Yeah. I have quite high, let's say, recognition and status motive. And that, of course, as a coach is a bit difficult, because, of course, as a coach, it's really about enabling others, empowering them. And that's why I also do a little bit of this public speaking and training part. And, your colleague Suresh and I, we probably have some similarities as well. So I would have to lie if I had to say that being always in the second row is nice. So I also have this part a little bit of this.
I think I think it's a lot age dependent. At 24, it is more about discovering yourself. Mm-hmm. At 43, it is more about just being yourself. So age does make a difference.
Yes, but being yourself should, in my opinion, not become an excuse for not being willing to learn and change. I mean, there's nowadays a lot of talking in leadership world about authenticity, authentic leadership, and so on. And I've seen numerous times people who obviously are in some ways not behaving in an ethical way, not following values, and say, well, but I'm authentic, that's the way I am. And I would not say it like this. I think I have found to a certain degree what I'm good in, where I can make the biggest impact, but I wouldn't call myself complacent or self-satisfied to this degree yet. But definitely in comparison to 24, it's more like, do you try to live the life of somebody else? No. Yeah. I think I can live more.
Yeah. So in terms of the social service that you did, you worked with that segment of the society. You have this background of psychology, MBA, and all of this. What has been the impact of all of that in upbringing your children?
It's also starting from the children. My children are for me the most important thing in the world. I really say that, and I think nowadays a lot of dads would say it, but I really mean it. And I've been willing to take career steps back in the past, and I've been willing to, I don't know, it was natural in me for me after the birth of my son to stay for 3 months at home and then say at a certain point of time that my wife should work, and I do this again and again. And I'm even telling clients, sorry, I don't want to go to this meeting. I'm renouncing on a big engagement because it's an important day for my family. So this is maybe the first point, because I would say there's only one chance that you do this. Also, if you look a little bit at my background, we were trying for a very long time to have children. It didn't work, and if it came so, it was so wanted. So that's no one. And also now they are 8 and 6, and I know in a few years from now they will be out of the house. They will become. So I think now it's really the age to support them in having roots, but also giving them wings. Secondly, I have to say, am I applying my psychology to the children? I would say strongly yes. Yeah. Not in the way of manipulating, but of course, as a psychologist, I learned about developmental psychology. I learn and teach a lot about leadership, which in a certain way is influencing. And I think to many degrees we do this. I'll give you one example. My wife and I, and my wife luckily is supporting me a lot on this. We really sit together and said, what are the values that we really want our children to live after, and we want to live after? What do we want to be role models for? And I think most parents would say, yeah, values are important, but we really made this very explicit. So we really sit down and we noted what are the 3 values that we say are the core values that we want to really make sure that everything we live and breathe and we role model doing that. In our case, it was tolerance. So it's extremely important for us. I have to say my wife is also from Asia, and we've been living in a multi-national marriage. So all kind of tolerance towards all kind of diversity was one. The second one was self-confidence, because honestly, that's something that I was not raised with. And I really said, I want our kids to really believe in themselves and their own strength. And the third one was curiosity. Yeah? And I think this is, if you look now at how we see them now growing up and feedback you get from school and so on, probably we did a quite good job on this. So maybe that's an example of how probably my background in my psychology helped me in thinking about how to educate children. Now, I mean, would be wrong to say that we do everything good, and like in every household, it happens that we also sometimes get furious and we forget ourselves, or we let them watch TV for too much time or give them too many sweets. So I'm far from being perfect, but I think when it comes to the big scheme of things, we apply some stuff.
And when you talk about tolerance, self-confidence, and curiosity, how does these 3 help you when you get into a conflicting situation like you just spoke, that, tempers do fly off?
I'll give you an example. 2 days ago, there was really a quite, let's say, conflictual situation between mainly my son and my wife, because he had somehow been doing some crappy stuff. Okay, he was playing football in the house and he played the ball and it jumped against plate, and the plate was falling and broken. And my mom, his mom was really getting a little bit angry, and then he was being sad, and he didn't want to talk to her anymore. All these kind of things that happened, and I think this was a moment where it did help to a certain degree. Of course, we first had to cool things down and sleep on it. So I was then sleeping in his room and really said, let's talk about it. And the next day, then he really wrote a letter. And still, it was heartbreaking. I really had tears in my eyes. And he sat together with his little sister, and he wrote back a letter where he said, yeah, and I had a bad day yesterday, and I'm sorry about it, and I hope you forgive me. But I also know that you are sometimes stressed, and Corona is not so easy for you. Yeah, and I think that was really a moment to say, probably we didn't do anything so bad. And then also, of course, my wife did the same, and she also came back and told him, okay, that's the reason why I did it. It doesn't really totally relate to tolerance, but I think the idea of being able to accept that people have different moods and people have different ways of behaving, changing perspectives, that's what I played out.
Wow. Wow. Are you doing some parenting workshops as well?
Nope.
Do you intend to?
Should I? Yeah, the longer I talk about it, might be a good idea. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, because the way you're talking about it, again, it's about being practical, right? Again, a lot of information is available everywhere in the form of, books and reading and YouTube and everything. But when people are implementing it, that's the real deal. Because when a child does break a plate playing football in the house, it could really make things ugly, or it could be completely ignored. It could go either ways, to either extremes. But this was like a balanced, beautiful approach that both your son and your wife followed to resolve it, which is excellent.
I don't think it's a big market in Germany for parenting workshops, but it's a nice idea. Anyways, I mean, what I'm sometimes also exaggerating. So in the first lockdown in March to May, when there was homeschooling starting, I was just coming back from some Scrum workshops, and then I introduced a Kanban board for my kids. So where we had Post-its with all the homework, and then you had to be done, or to do, doing, done. And I was totally excited about it. The kids found it totally boring, and they said, come on, what's the point? We just do our homework and we're done. So, okay. So, so that's probably the problem when you're having a psychologist as a husband or as a father, sometimes a bit too much.
And what's about the Asian vibe? So how did that come about? If you're okay sharing, how did you, was it a click, and then how's it been so many years, multicultural?
Yeah, so my wife is originally from Thailand, but she has, let's say, a rather Western background. So she studied, or she went to the United States for a while. I met her in Switzerland when she was working there. So to a certain degree, I think when it comes to the two of us, she's probably more Western than most people I've met in Thailand. And I'm maybe less German than some other people. So that goes pretty well. And again, we had some shared values, what is important for us, and that was clear beforehand. It has also its advantages when it comes to culinary points. So I think the cooking part is a really nice one. And I think it normally also makes quite a nice mix for the kids. They look quite nice. Wherever it's getting difficult is when original family is involved. So that's the moment, like what are expectations from my parents, from her parents with regards to how often you should be where, and that kind of stuff. There we do have our conflicts as well. But so far, all good management. Fingers crossed.
14 years. It remain like that. With a person like you around, it wouldn't take long to anyway solve the conflict and come back to the zone of love again.
Yeah, maybe that's true.
Okay, so let's move a little professionally. The kind of work that you do, again, it's like a wide range from being a lecturer to being a coach. So it may come across as, ultimately it's just teaching or coaching or empowering people. But, we know that when we talk to different segments of people, the approach needs to be very different. So please tell us some bit about that.
Yeah, maybe to start with. So job-wise, I'm doing lecturing for some universities, mainly change management and leadership. I am working also as a trainer. So currently I'm doing a lot of training on how to increase virtual presence and how to run virtual meetings. Then third part is indeed one-on-one coachings, mainly in the business context. And number 4 is really workshop facilitation, particularly with leadership teams, how to make them grow together, build up trust, vulnerability, and so on. And more also really to design bigger programs, like really talent development programs, where a company says, here we have those 10, 15 bright young people, and we really want to give them a good education, ranging from knowledge in finance, strategy, leadership, but also personality development. So that's a little bit the job. So to a certain degree, yes, it is right, but it still always has to do with, I always call it growing people's teams and organizations. That's really my way of seeing it. When it comes to different cultures, companies, it really reaches from multinationals over government organizations, over startups up to medium-sized family-owned companies, and also country-wise. Yeah, in the meantime, had the luck to be in quite a lot of different places. And interestingly, I don't want to do too much clubbing, but I have somehow developed a style that seems to work everywhere. That regardless of if you're in China or in India or in Israel or in the Arabic world, people can relate to it somehow, because I think there are some universal principles, of course, the way how you present things, but I think if you really, most of our people in our age are striving for having a proper work-life balance, of kind of being a good husband or a good wife, a good partner, a good citizen, and being torn among those different roles. Most of us don't feel good to have conflicts. Most of us, when we are coming into leadership positions, are struggling with how to get the right balance between control and trust. And so to a certain degree, I have to say there's not even so much adaptation necessary. Yes, to a certain degree, especially in the beginning, you have to adapt the language to a certain degree, the words you use, the speed, maybe also the attire. Do you rather look more business style, or is exactly working like this negative thing? That's oftentimes the entrance ticket. But I think once you have built up or established a personal connection to people, that normally works pretty well everywhere. Does this answer your question, or did you?
It does, it does. And when you do that across the globe, how do you measure results? Because when you're talking about, particularly this question is coming from those 10, 15 talented people who need to be groomed for, say, senior positions. That's one challenge that we face in our industry, because we're talking about soft sciences. How do you measure that? And I'm sure you have a secret there, because you're coming from a scientific background.
Yeah, the secret is that I tell myself, I relax myself on this to a certain degree. I said, not everything can be measured. Some things can also be observed or felt. Yeah? So of course, if we look into theory, you have all those models. I'm sure you know the Kirkpatrick module with the 4 steps. So satisfaction, then learning, then transfer, and then return on development. And yes, we've gone through all this, and I've worked also in HR before in my career, trying to really measure what is the impact of a leadership training on the bottom line. And if you really do this all of the time, it starts getting very frustrating, because oftentimes it's not. I would say I'm not happy if people just say after a workshop, hey, I had a good time, it was fun because the drinks were good and we were in a nice hotel. That would be not enough. But to a certain degree, I think even that already helps. So there's so many intangible elements. People are networking with each other. People feel re-inspired to work in the company. People feel it's the right place. And then what does happen quite often is that people come back to you after some month and they say, hey, this part, I really put it into practice and so on. And that I even do a bit more, let's say, proactively, that I also put in my calendar nowadays, 3 to 6 months after workshops or trainings, reminders. I call different people and I ask them, so what is still remaining? And then we have those different kind of people. We have some who really say, yeah, it was fun. What was the train topic about again? Yeah. And then you have some people who say, yeah, I still remember this tool and that's what I'm using. And sometimes you even have people say, hey, really, this was a life-changing experience. And since then I have softened, I have opened up, and so on and so on and so on. And I think this is satisfying enough. I have the feeling that most, let's say, good HR or training managers have also come to this conclusion that not everything that is done in this field of personal development can be measured with hard figures. And I'm quite happy about this because, yeah, it would put too much pressure onto it. What I'm still struggling with, however, is how to really build training seminars and workshops in a way that people love to, that people really take something out of it. So I think you know this as well. So when you come to university, people just say, okay, here's the stuff, learn it, and that's about it. And of course, now we do much more with role plays, with transfer, with peer-to-peer coaching, with check-in calls 1 week later to really see what people transfer. But yeah, there's still a way to go.
And when you say that, I'm again picking on the softening thing. When you said that, somebody does make a call and say that I've softened as a person. So when you look at your own life, or when you look at all these trainings, you've trained so many people, you've gone into thousands and thousands of seminars and public speaking assignments. What do you see in terms of your own experience? If one is soft enough, warm enough, is the world too hard, or is it actually too nice? What's your experience on that?
Oh, you are asking the big questions. Now I'm speaking really a little bit from my mainly, admittedly, German context with companies who are German but acting global, more from an engineering background, building machines, building heatings and so on. Here, my experience is that the world is still often too hard, the company world here, and that when people are softening up, when they are showing vulnerability, when they are not pretending to be somebody, they make positive experiences with this in almost all of the cases that I have worked with. So I've never come to a point that people said, I've done this and now suddenly people are laughing about me or people are abusing me. So the movement is definitely going into this direction. And I see this even more when I'm working in countries with a very masculine culture, such as Russia or China, that for people it's totally strange to see a professor who's saying, I don't know all the answers myself. Or somebody as a leader who says, here in this moment I was afraid as well, I was a bit nervous. But the experience normally is it does work. To a certain degree, to a certain limit. So I think as a boss, as a kind of respect figure, you still, as a father, you still have to irradiate a certain amount of optimism, positivity, and so on, also to give people stability and an anchor. But yeah, I think softening up normally works pretty well.
So this anchor that you're giving to people and that radiance and energy that goes out, what's your source of energy and what's your anchor?
Okay, some really personal answers. One of them is indeed.
You can choose not to answer because, as I said, this is not
everything.
Just asking what was coming to me.
Yeah, I do answer everything, and I'm trying to be as honest as possible. That's the idea of the thing, isn't it, Jess? So, stability anchors for me. Number one, to a certain degree, family. But I'm saying explicitly to a certain degree because it's not only family, and sometimes it's the opposite. Yeah. So I'm also sometimes very happy to be alone, and that's something we had to learn as well. For example, I have now in the Corona time hired an office. I'm not doing home office, but I always drive 10 kilometers. For me, indeed, work is a stability anchor as well. Yeah? So just to see that. Nature is an important one, going out, looking into the nature, just, yeah, taking a deep breath, going for a walk, anything related to this. I have a network, which is very helpful. So a group of professional peers that I got to know in an education that I did myself 10 years ago. And we are still talking every 3 months or 6 months. And yeah, we're growing old together to a certain degree. Yeah, I would say these are the most important ones to me.
And what's your equation with God? Is there a concept of God? Is God inside? Do you have anything related to spirituality, religion? I wouldn't say, but spirituality, yeah.
This is still something I'm postponing to think about when kids are becoming a bit older. Well, I mean, my wife is Buddhist. I'm a Christian originally. We are trying to raise the kids in the belief that there's one God and there's different ways of approaching it. But, well, I think I'm not yet able to fully answer this question.
Okay, tell me what's been your biggest learning. I know this bit about you, that you're quite a storyteller. So tell us some experience from your life in terms of anything, any interesting anecdote or any learning that you've had during Corona times or even before Corona, something that you would want to share with all of us here.
Cool, with pleasure. By the way, if you say big storyteller, are my answers too long or is it okay? Should I?
No, it's just that you mentioned that, right? No, not at all. This is going pretty well. You said that your style of training is a lot of stories. I'm looking forward to a story from you.
A story, yes. I start with Corona time. It's not really a story, but it's something that gave me a lot of gratitude. So my job existed of human interaction with people. And of course, the lockdown, March 10 meant nothing, zero. So all my jobs from March until August got cancelled within 1 week. So I was really there with nothing, zero. And if you're a freelancer, and I mean, we bought a house a few years ago and we're still paying the mortgage and the credit, that's quite significant. So I did have 2 or 3 days that I was really saying, what to do now? And then I really told myself, now it's really the opportunity to do what you're always teaching other people when it comes to change management. Yeah? So I really looked at my own PowerPoint slide set and I really tried to apply it for myself. So what is important now in terms of resilience? Yes, resource orientation. Note down what you're good in. Network. Call your 5 best friends. And then inner circle, middle circle, outer circle. What can you control? What can you influence? So one thing to control was really to say, how good am I with new technology? So we organized some classes for ourselves. I said, what am I good in storytelling? Yes, so I designed a letter with some nice pictures about what leaders can give to people in stability. I sent it out to all my employees. I put a training calendar online. I think 2 days after the lockdown, it was online, and I sent it out to all my LinkedIn contacts. And yeah, and it took a while, I have to be honest, yeah, because I think people were really in this shock. But yeah, as of end of April, then first requests came, hey, I mean, probably this is going to take a bit longer. Can you give us some training on virtual leadership and so on? And it really took off. And now we are now in end of December. And if I look at the days that are sold and my profit, it's more than the year of before Corona. And it might sound like a bit of show off, but the story behind it is really to say, no matter how much you talk about agility and how important it is in our world, that you really have to live it and you have to role model it yourself. And I still have some colleagues in my field, in our field, coaches, trainer, who say, no, the internet is not my thing, I'm not going to do it. And you can say, yeah, you can say that, but at a certain point of time, you also have to pay the bills. Right?
Do you have people there in the technological world of Germany who say that they are not tech savvy?
Definitely. More than you might think. That's surprising. Germany, with regards to digitalization, is one of the worst countries in Germany. You still have on most part of the countryside no quick internet connection. You still have 20 to 25% of people who are not even using the internet. That's a big difference between, let's say, city and countryside, like in India, I suppose. As well.
Yeah, well, India, it falls apart. Yeah, but I remember when the lockdown began, I had to get a fiber connection because now everything had to be online. And I think a new learning chain began for me as well. So I relate to that completely. And yeah, the profits have been soaring.
I'm thinking a little bit when I listen to myself now that most of the stories I told, I'm the hero, I'm the super educator, I'm the one who go through a change. So I'll tell you a bit of a different learning as well. And that's one that has to do with probably a weak spot of mine. Yeah, I have quite a big, let's say, recognition motive. I want to be liked. And a few years ago, I had a situation where this was really playing against me. It was a row of trainings for young leaders, and it was in a company, and I really felt very welcomed and warm there, and they were hiring me for more and more trainings. And then one day, one of the managing directors invited me for a barbecue at home. And I was, oh, that's so nice. And then so honored. And then after some drinks, she was asking me, so can you tell me a little bit more about that lady in the program? Come on, we are friends now. And how is she like? And then, oh, I'm so flattered. So I told her a little bit, yeah, she was in the meeting sometimes not very concentrated. And then 1 month later, we had another workshop. And when we were working about ground rules, confidentiality, she stood up and said, I don't think, Thomas, that there is confidential in the room. I don't trust you because you have been telling my boss everything about me after the training. And that was a moment when somebody else said, yeah, I heard something similar, that you're also having contact with other people here. And I'm not feeling sure that this is really a safe environment. And yeah. And that was, at the end of the day, the end of my relationship with this client. I lost it. And there was a big learning that I took out of it, that no matter how nice you mean it, and no matter how nice it is to be flattered, you really also have to stay very professional in your roles sometimes. And if you say yes to somebody, you say no to somebody else. And by really trying to make my barbecue mate happy, I really did the worst I could do. I was breaching trust. This was a very, very intense learning. It took me quite a while to come over it. Also to say, how can I make sure that this doesn't happen again? How can I not make my hunger for being liked or for being acknowledged stand in my way of my professionalism? Have you been to
Yeah, I understand. Sorry, say that again.
Have you ever been to situations like this?
Yeah, in the sense that, I don't know, is it more about being liked, or is it more about, just taking everybody in the face value and doing an honest conversation?
Yeah. To a certain degree, that's probably it. I mean, it's really about, I don't want to tell people into the face, no. That's something I've always struggled with. And of course, the professional way would have been to tell at the barbecue to this lady, you know what, why don't you talk to herself? Or we have a meeting of 3. I would love to tell you, but in my role as a coach, I have to stay professional here and so on.
Yeah. I think then people like us tend to communicate what just comes to us rather than being strategic and filtering out information. So that's one of the weaknesses that we carry in the cunning world of today.
Yeah, and I mean, lately I was doing an interview process and I was just the external interviewer, so I was not allowed to take decisions, but I was so excited about a candidate that I told him afterwards, I was really, really excited. That was a great interview. And then later on, there was the political decision being taken that this person could not be taken. And then again, it really backfired a lot. So I think this is really something I'm still struggling with in which situations is being nice the wrong thing because it has a counter effect.
I think, isn't it just being honest and just saying what is rather than just being nice? Because, in one way, are you not working the person's kind of, life out for him or her when you say that, you know what, this is what it is. And that young chap may just learn a lesson in life itself that, oh, okay, so there are political stuff that goes around everywhere, not only in the government, but in the companies as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, in a certain degree, I overestimated the professionalism of both these people. I overestimated the professionalism of that barbecue lady who simply should not have done that, to come afterwards to her employee and said, yeah, but Thomas also said that. And I also overestimated the professionalism of this candidate to say, this is my opinion. But in the end, the decision is not with me. And maybe that's the learning out of this, to really make sure that while being nice, you still have to make sure that you make a clear message. Okay, but I'm not the one to decide, or I'm asking you not to tell.
I think that's the radiance of optimism that automatically goes out to people, and it may just lead to disappointment in them later on for something. Okay, so let's look at the other side of it. When you talk about that only those who burn themselves can ignite fire in others. Tell me about that.
This is, I don't even know where this quote comes from, and I don't know if the translation to English works as well as it works in my language, but I mean, the feedback that I have been receiving since I'm a kid and that I'm still proud of is that when I do something, I really do it. Huh? And again, I would like to quote your nice colleague, Mohan. Suresh there, yeah, and I think he's also quoting this, like, what is the point if you're going somewhere anywhere? Why don't you try to do it well? So I simply cannot understand how people can work in a job they don't like, or even do anything without any passion, because then at the end you don't have to do it at all. And especially for leaders. So, I mean, I did one of my biggest projects ever in a public organization with over 100,000 people, where, let's say, 90,000 of the people were looking at the time and say, I have to go home now. And that's, I think, where we really were trying to infiltrate the thoughts that, yeah, life is simply better when you are good, when you're excelling in something, and when you enjoy what you're doing. And to a certain degree, of course, it depends on the circumstances, but you can, I think, very well also influence yourself. I mean, I'm working a lot with self-influencing techniques. It's not that every morning I'm happy to sit here in my computer office all by myself and looking at the screen, but this morning I would say I would have preferred to stay a few hours longer in bed, but to a certain degree, say, hey, I have the chance today to do that, and I talk to people somewhere else. And that's again the feedback we received today. Say, we didn't want to know if it's a good idea to do a training online, but you brought it across with so much passion and enthusiasm, and this is contagious, I think. And yeah. I love to be contagious. Can you say that? I love to be infected as well by the enthusiasm of others. It normally works well.
Yeah, and then digital platform is not a deterrent to that, because I think the vibes do go across and people get it. If you are passionate, if you're genuine, people definitely get it.
And you can do it in short trousers.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's been one of our biggest learning as trainers, that we are so used to giving a day long or a 2 day long, 3 day long training. And now it's been capsules of 1 hour, and they seem to be going pretty well.
Yeah, same experience for you.
Yeah, exactly the same. Yeah. And it's beautiful to see that, when we started off, again, not seeing people, not being able to connect, the entire body language being missing. I had my own blocks, but I think it just took me one training and I said, no, this is good. There's so much more I can do and learn from this.
Yeah. And I mean, today, one thing we, for example, worked on is, I mean, again, very dry engineering, mechanic driven. And they talked about how can we bring more creativity into our people. They feel so shy. And they talked a little bit about the importance of psychological safety and how can you create psychological safety by also making a little bit fun of yourself. And so we really spent here in our group of male German engineers, 40 plus, some hours where we were trying to look as silly as possible. And so we didn't do much more with this technologies than you think.
That's a good idea. That's a great one. And I think this also brings a chance to people to put down their barriers and just be themselves. Like I would hand out funny birthday gifts, kind of, that we had way back when we were children, to people as prizes when we were doing face-to-face trainings. And they loved it, irrespective of being leaders in the company. They would love to blow that whistle, to wear those funny specs and get themselves clicked. So yeah, it always helps.
But I would still say, of course, everything at a time. And I mean, maybe that's still the German nature in me. It would not work to do just blowing the whistles for the whole 4 hours. Then there must be some content as well. Yeah. I think especially in times where everything is so, I have to say it, where a lot of things are so bitter. And many people are really struggling. I think it's more important than ever also to really give some fun and have some spaces where it's allowed to laugh and to relax and feel safe.
So after the 4 best-selling winning books that you've authored, is the 5th one going to be in English, and is it going to be on some bit of fun?
Thank you for mentioning best-selling winning. That is probably a little bit exaggerated. The first one was indeed quite well sold, and the third one as well. I've done 5, by the way, nowadays. And the 5th one that I would have believed to be the best didn't work out at all. And I'm afraid this is in general a trend that also the guys from the publishing house are telling me, that book is, unless you're really doing a Harry Potter kind of book, the value of books is really reducing a lot. I don't know, what do you still buy books? Read physical books yourself?
Not really. I come from a generation where we started with that. but it's all online now. So yeah, the printed hard copy is not bought anymore, and especially for Corona. For the last 10 months, I haven't purchased a book now.
Yeah, and that I really have to say. I think it's still the main reason why I'm writing books is because this is my way of learning. Because I always write books together with one or two other colleagues, and then for me, it's almost like writing a diploma thesis or a PhD, with the side effect that afterwards you have something here that you can hold in your hand and that you earn a little bit of money. But yeah, it's really for me. So the last one is called Understanding IT and Motivating IT Guys. So I wrote it together with a hardcore IT nerd. And so it was really about understanding the psychology of him and the whole business. What is the difference between a DevOps and architect and that kind of stuff. And so I just enjoyed the process of writing it, and really there was a lot of dialogue, and then we throw the balls to each other. I've never written a book alone, and I think that's for me the main part. So I always look for people that I find interesting that say, let's do this together, and then in the end we see how it sells. In English, never had the chance to find a publishing house yet. Very open for that.
Well, you never know what 2021 opens up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I think I'll move to my second last question, which is that in terms of life, in terms of people, what message, what guidance would you want to give people, youngsters, oldies, and ages? Anyways, it's all about energy. So looking at you, the masculine, feminine balancing, or more towards knowing how to be and how to put it out, how to implement, how to upgrade yourself. There is so much that you've done in a fairly short span of time. What would you want to tell, the listeners? And
number one, stop taking yourself so serious. You're just a contribution, or you're just a little wheel in the. So that's for me always been the main part. That there's 9 billion people in the world, and you're just one of them. And to a certain degree, many people take things so extremely serious, and they really believe this is the worst in the world. And I always think of it from a greater scheme. In 10 years and 100 years, when you look back at it, nobody will care about it anymore. So that I find important. What goes along with this is it's absolutely okay sometimes to say I have no opinion, especially when you mention youngsters and people now in the Twitter age. I think everybody seems to be able to have an opinion on everything. And I always admire people who really say, I don't know yet. I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to learn. I hear you, but I don't have an opinion. I've never seen somebody in a political talk show or something saying that. And I would be really happy if this would happen more. Yeah? And yeah, maybe the third thing is that normally seeing the good in people really works. So, try to see the good. You are, I think, an expert of this. I saw it in your CV, but I'm really a big lover of this I'm okay, you're okay model. So this framework of really going through the world with, yes, accept yourself the way you are, and also try to accept other people. Never go into this models of I'm okay, you're not okay, or I'm not okay, you're okay.
Looking at 2021, Thomas, share a story with us. What do you think 2021 is going to be, or anything? I think I just want to listen to a story from you.
Of course, the first thing that comes logically to the mind is COVID and COVID-19. And I'm very, very confident that by summer next year, so the German summer, I know you have summer all year long and you have 3 different summers, but our summer in June, the life will get much more normal again. And I believe the positive parts that will happen next year is that, people will much more consciously enjoy things that they took for so long for granted. So going out for a restaurant, giving a hug to somebody they like, going to a concert, that will happen much more consciously. And I think at the same time, people will take the best of both worlds. If I look at our profession, you and I, we will not have to fly for 8 hours anymore for meeting for 1 hour with a CEO who wants to see our face and shake our hand, but they will do it by video. But we will still have moments that we will be able to go somewhere, but when we meet somewhere, it will be much more intense on the people side. Yeah, I just heard yesterday from a participant in a training a very nice sentence. You know, this out of office mails, out of office. So I'm out of office, so I cannot answer the mails. He has now established something that says I'm in the office mails. So he said, he right now when he's in the office, he doesn't answer to mails, because when he's in the office, he wants to network with people and deal with them. So he said, when I'm in the home office, then I can do my emails and all that work. When I'm in the office, I really want to make sure that I'm with the people, so that I will not sit on my computer and check mails. And that I found very nice. And I think this is a development that will happen in 2021. People will be more conscious about, maybe we have to fly a little bit less to all those useless business trips, destroy the environment a bit less. But when we come together, then it's more intense, and it's really more about seeing the other human being interacting.
And what's that one message that you have for the organizations, for the companies?
Oh, gosh, can I have some more? I don't think I have one now. Huh? I think I tried to say already that trust more in you people, see more the positive in others, see each other more. Yeah, I think that's to a certain degree it. It sounds so old-fashioned that human are the most important asset in company, but I think that's now becoming even more important. So be happy about everybody who's still with you, see the human beings. Yeah.
And where can people connect with you?
I probably the best way, before I describe now the different things, is my website, www.thomassaller.com. So it's just my name without any dot and anything like this. And there you find my email. You can also add me on LinkedIn, Thomas Saller. I'm on Instagram. I think I'm also on Facebook, but not using it.
Okay.
So Instagram, or just old-fashioned via email, or when it's all over, then just come to Bavaria, to our beautiful lakes, and see us there.
I think I'll just take the last offer straight away.
Oh, you are more than welcome. And I still hope that one day there's a chance to meet you in Delhi as well. Yes.
Sure, we definitely will do that. Any last message, anything that you want to say that you missed out on saying?
Now, I would be really interested in feedback on how this landed. Am I too naive? Are those ideas of how you see the world too positive, too optimistic? That would be something. So both from you, just whenever you have time, and anybody who listens to that. But I mean, I've been surviving like this very well for 43 years. So really this message, you're just a contribution. Don't take yourself so important. Trust in people. Be passionate and be it with others as well. I'm okay, you're okay. That has been working well, and I think it will always do. But I'm curious to hear from others.
I think so, because I love the person that you are. My goodness, I hope there were more and more people like yourself out in the world. There may be, but it's just that I think they're covered up with all their insecurities and ego and statuses and wanting to, on reasons, not negative or positive, but I hope more people could be like you. So yeah.
Hey, and by the way, I mean, if we still have a moment time for that, I mean, I was full of insecurities. I mean, when I was a kid, and my education, we luckily didn't come to that part, but it was not at all that I was a self-secure kid. And I think still by the age of 18, if I would walk by a group of 5 other youngsters and they would say something I would think that they love about me. I mean, after I finished university, I said, oh, I'm sure I'll never find a job. So, I mean, this has been all a process as well of really working on myself, understanding, also surrounding yourself by the right people. I think that also helps to a certain degree. And sometimes maybe even saying to some people, yeah, that is toxic. I also don't want to be so much with you. And yeah. And I'm far from saying that I'm totally secure now. I think that's also fine.
My second last question was 5 questions back, but I have a question now. Now you're bringing this up. And that is that being insecure, university, education, if somebody is in your spot right now, a child, a teenager, what's that one thing where that child, that person can begin?
Can begin?
Yeah. So when I say can begin, what I mean is if somebody is where you were 30 years ago, 25 years ago, what is that one thing that the person can do to embark himself or herself on this journey
I
of?
was hoping for a question, what was for me the life-changing book, but now it's a chance to say it. So I really, what was one of the turning points in my life was really when I was reading the Strengths Finder book, Now Discover Your Strengths from the Gallup Institute. Sounds very business, but the idea is so easy, and it's the core message is, it's always more motivating and more successful when you work on strengthening your strengths instead of weakening your weakness. And of course, the entire education system is about weakening weaknesses, and most parts of the world like things like this. And my education I was very good in school, but when I had a C somewhere, then people would tell me, why do you have a C? And they didn't say, hey, you have so many A's. And that's really the one point that I always say, think about what you're really good in, understand your strengths, and keep on working on them. That should not be an excuse for not being able to read and write. Yes, you have to find a basic level of other things as well. So I think it's not enough to say, I can sing well, so I will be a new pop star. But really the self-confidence starts with not thinking about who all the others are and what would be an even level, but really say, yes, I have a profile, and in the profile I have weaknesses and I have some strength. And my friend, my son has a friend who is from a rather poor family, and he is not good at all in school, and he's also not very sporty, but he is extremely social and he has a kind heart. And I have been sitting together with him and have been telling this explicitly, and he always comes out when he has been with our family really a bit bigger, because that's something he doesn't get. So really, yeah, believe on your strengths, work on your strengths, identify them, find ways on how to make them use. Yeah.
And was that the life-changing book that you were talking about?
Yeah. It's you can buy it for $9 online, and in the end there's a little scratch code, and you can do a little test online, and then it shows you what your biggest 5 strengths are. And I was back then working for a company called Procter & Gamble in the HR department. My job was rather administrative, a lot of legal stuff, a lot of negotiations, a lot of nitty-gritty detail, and I didn't like it at all. And when I did this, what came out here is my biggest strength are communication, winning other people over, individualization, so making sure adapting to others. And I said, I'm just in the wrong job, that's it. And then I quit. I really wrote a letter. A few weeks later, I quit and I searched for something new.
Wow. Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Thomas.
Have you read the book?
I haven't. I'm going to order one right away.
I should get some commission for the number of books now. But if you have done so, please send me what are your 5 biggest strengths. I think I have an idea already, yes, but I would be curious to hear what came out.
I am going to do that. I'm going to put this book's name at the description of YouTube as well, so that people can get this. Cool. Yeah, that'll be beautiful. Thank you, Thomas. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. I know we're running into almost mid-afternoon, early evening for you, and Christmas is around the corner. So enjoy yourself. Have a great 2021, and I look forward to seeing you in person soon.
Well, I would love to do that as well. Thanks to all of you, and thanks for all the beautiful questions. It was a nice experience. Normally, I'm the one who's asking the questions. It's nice to be asked. Enjoy it.